Alright, so this is a redo of a video I've done before on making infused oils, herbal infused oils, right? They're good for medicinal properties, whether topically, especially topically. I talk about menstruums a little bit later. And an oil, a carrier like olive oil, sapphire oil, sunflower oil, those are carriers or menstruums. And so we're going to infuse, we're going to hot infuse in this video, which is a redo of a Redux, or however you pronounce it, a redo of a video that I had done previously. Now again, this is fall, almost Halloween time, 2023. So my intention is for these to kind of sit over the winter. So I have what's here is yarrow infused oil, and then I have a plantain infused oil. Now I did a previous video about making yarrow and plantain infused ointment, or kind of homemade DIY neosporin. This is how you make the infused oils. They're different from essential oils. Essential oils are the actual oils from the live plant, or peels, or root, or bark. That's a more time-consuming process. You need contraptions and things to gather the oils from those plants. Some plants or roots or plant matter yield more than most. So that's why when you go to your Whole Foods or your herbal shops or whatever, your Ren fairs, whatever the heck, and you buy essential oils in the little jars and they cost an arm and a leg, that's why. Because just to get that little bit of droplet, it's going to cost you a little bit. This is different, where you're taking a base oil and you're infusing the constituents of plant matter into the oil. It's not the same. And we're using the hot method, which we're heating up the oil to expedite the process or quicken the process, versus the warm method, which is basically using your, like for example, olive oil, using it at room temperature and doing this. Now, for anything like that, a tincture, an infused oil, usually moon to moon or about 4 weeks. On the fast track, 2 weeks is your minimum if you need to do something on the quick. I'm going to hope that I won't need this until maybe even next year, this time. But at least it's all set there. When I look at it, when I see it come across it, I'll shake it to make sure all the plant matter is mixed in with the menstruum, with the oils in there. And then I just let it sit. Cool, dark, dry place, yeah, just like that. So I'm gonna show you how I do this. Again, it's pretty easy. It's not too difficult. I just don't want you to burn or scald yourself if you choose to try this. Alright, so let's start out. I've got some, we're gonna do yarrow infused oil first, and then we'll do plantain infused oil later. And I've got yarrow that I've harvested over the years here. We'll go back to 2017, 2021, and 2022, actually 2016. So we should use this first. This is the oldest. Now, there is a kind of an expiration date on your wild harvested herbs. They shouldn't be that old, right? 5, 6, 7 years maybe. Some real good certified herbalists may argue your best bet is to use within 3 years. Because I'm in the urban setting, I try not to deplete the population that I have, so I don't try to over harvest by setting my watch every 3 years and going out and harvest. So I'm going to use this. I keep them wrapped up in a zippy. Sometimes I put a silicone pack in here to keep them dry, and this still smells pretty viable, as opposed to what I harvested this May 2023. Yeah, this is, you can kind of smell the difference. This is much more vibrant smelling than this, but I'm pretty sure because of the bulk in here, the constituents level will be will be adequate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the majority of this, and then I'm going to try to consolidate everything in here. Now, if I was doing this for like, if I was a clinical herbalist and doing this, things would be much more regulated and solid. But right now, I'm just kitchen witchcrafting, basically, if you want to use that moniker. And it all works just as well. But when you're serving other people, you want to make things as consistent as possible. So it's 2023 to 2017. I'll use all of this in this bag. And I just want to kind of blend these together, kind of macerate them up. Kind of get them out of the way. And these are the yarrow leaves. I do have yarrow flowers, which is different for different uses. And I do want to keep some dry stuff for other uses, tinctures and whatnot, teas and whatnot. And then 21 and 23 we'll use, let's see, 20, we'll keep these two newer ones. So, yeah. So, use the majority of this. This will be used somehow. I'll probably just make it a tincture or something like that out of that. And then we'll save these for later. And next year we'll harvest more. We'll make a note to go out and harvest more so I have a more fresh supply. So, I'm just going to take these now and break these up. And this is just the yarrow, just so that there's more mass when we put them in the cup. Or, excuse me, our vessel, right? And again, I want to make sure everything's completely dry. Just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my jar, my vessel. And again, I can make a ton of this because I have a bunch left here, right? So I'm going to take my jar and I just want to pack this in here. You can go ahead and pack it to the top. And it's okay if it doesn't go all the way to the top. I like to have some headroom so I can shake as this sits and macerates. Now I'm doing this in wintertime. I've already made a batch of ointment that I make out of the infused oils. So I won't need this for a while, so it can sit, probably a sit. This is early fall 2023, so this can sit throughout. I need it until I need it again, probably sometime midsummer next year, 2024. But I'm going to add a little bit more of the older stuff from 2016. And then I'll save this just so I have it, and then I can kind of put everything in one space until I'm ready to harvest some more next year. And the time to harvest leaves of pretty much any herb is usually in the spring, early spring, depending on the species of the plant. That's when the energy of the plant is coming from the roots. If they're annual or perennial, that's when the energy is going into the leaves. Okay, if they are biennial, meaning they have a life cycle of 2 years, that's when you want to get the first year growth. The second year growth is the earlier, more mature plant. Burdock would be an example of, burdock and mullein would be an example of a biennial plant. It has a 2-year life cycle. Then it propagates itself. That's wow in Japanese if you don't know. Watching Japanese TV. Actually, it has a lot of meaning, so wait. I won't get into that. Not a language channel. Okay, so we've got our jar packed with our dry yarrow here. We're going to go and pack our jar full of plantain. Okay, same thing here with the plantain. I've got some plantain from past years that I want to use first. And plantain, again, is another plant that you want to harvest in the spring, late spring, early summer is when they start to get really big. And kind of throughout their life cycle you can still harvest them. So this for some reason is not dated. I think I got this from a herbal shop. So we're just going to go ahead and add that in there. Thus the importance of labeling and dating your bags and bottles. So this is from 2014, so this is pretty old stuff. And this is from a year ago, 2022. So, yeah, this smells pretty good. Still pretty good. We're going to use the majority of this. like that. And I think we can almost, I don't want to use all of my dry materials, but we might have to. And then I have to just make time to go out and harvest some more. I'll get some dry stuff. And again, I have silicone packets in here to keep them nice and dry. These baggies. Take this and then I want to crunch this up. Just kind of mix everything together. And mix the old with the new a little bit, so everything doesn't go, things don't go to waste. Otherwise, your old herbs can just go out to your compost pile if you have a garden or something like that. And again, I implore you, even if you don't have a plot or community garden to go to, you can always do a balcony garden, or there's hydroponics is something you could look into, doing something indoors, you know, where you don't have to have dirt and things like that. You can basically grow your plants and herbs hydroponically. So I'm going to crunch this up. So something to look into, okay? Okay, so I'm going to get a container for the plantain. And the plantain and the yarrow look pretty much, they look very different from one another. So I won't confuse these without labeling them yet. I just want to get the bottles packed. So, but if there's a pretty close proximity, make sure you label your bottles so you don't get confused. Label your containers. Alright, so like we did before with the yarrow, just going to take the plantain and kind of pack it in a jar here. And again, I want this to kind of macerate or sit over the winter time, so it'll be nice and concentrated. And we're going to use basically a heat oil infusion. Okay, we'll talk about that more when we get to that section. You don't have to do it that way, but I want to do it this way just for demo purposes. And I'm doing these separately. Okay. I'm doing these separately because you may just want an oil infusion for something particular. I could very well blend these and then I could just label it as a plantain oil infused mix, or however many herbs. You know, depending on your storage space, your intended use, etc., etc. So oftentimes you can kind of have, if I was using, you know, rose petals, a rose infused oil, you know, that would be rose infused. Or if it was going to be rose, or even lemon balm, we'll say, that's even better term, or comfrey, lemon balm, plantain and yarrow blend. I could do that in one jar and just do that infused oil, as long as I label it as such. I prefer to label them separately or pack them separately so that I have the versatility in usage is the word I'm looking for. When I want to just use plantain, I can use plantain. When I want to use yarrow, I can use yarrow. When I want to use lemon balm, I can use lemon balm. Comfrey, I can use comfrey, etc., etc. Or I can blend them as an infused oil. Alright, I've got my little electric burner here. I don't have to use the whole stove there. There's a bunch of cooking stuff over there. Cooking season. Fall is cooking season. So I'm using olive oil, refined olive oil. You can use sunflower oil, almond oil, safflower oil. You can melt down, I believe, coconut oil. So any vegetable oil, except for like canola. Don't use refined fats like lard or tallow. That's their different consistency. You want more of a vegetable oil of some sort, but not canola. As a carrier, or as we call a menstruum. Menstruums, again, by its base name. I'm real big into etymology, languages. I'm kind of a language geek, so a menstruum, as one would know, is kind of some sort of liquid that you're your herbal constituents want to break down into. So for example, for a regular old tea, black tea, Earl Grey tea, whatever, green tea, you get your little tea bags or whatever, and you put them in in water, which is a menstruum, which becomes then an infusion. You put a bunch of those tea bags into, some water, it becomes more of a decoction, and those are more for like your roots and your barks and things like that. Another menstruum might be glycerin. Another menstruum is alcohol, brandy, or vodka, preferably 40 proof at the very least. Other menstruums can be vinegar, so on and so forth. So in this case, for infused oil versus essential oils are actually the oils from the plant, the living plant itself. The infused oil is usually from a dried plant, okay, to prevent botulism and things like that, because oil and water don't mix. When a fresh plant is added to an oil, they're not going to blend. So it's best to dry your plants if you're going to do an infused oil. Essential oils, hopefully we can touch on that later. I do have a contraption. I just have to kind of figure out how it works to make essential oils, but that's a completely different thing than what we're making here, which is an infused oil. All right, so I'm going to take this olive oil, which I like to use, and it's relatively cheap, inexpensive, easily to get, and I'm going to put probably about 4 cups into my little pot here, and I want to heat it to at the most 140 degrees, at the least 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so I gotta open this up first. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this olive oil in here. So this is just 1 cup. I'm going to use 4 cups. And whatever's left over I can always put back into the bottle once it cools down. And then last one is going to be 4 cups of olive oil, just to heat up. Again, I don't want to cook it. I don't want it to start smoking. Okay, we just want to heat the oil so it more quickly breaks down the plant materials and disperses the constituent of the plant matter into the menstruum, which is the oil. Okay, our carrier oil, as some places would call it. Some entities would call it. All right, but it's essentially a menstruum in herbalism parlance. All right, so we want to let this kind of sit and heat up. I've got my little burner on the lowest setting, which is 1, so it'll take a little while. I've got a little thermometer so I can regulate how hot this is. I don't want it too hot. I'm not trying to cook or fry the dried plant matter. I just want to warm it up so that it quickly starts to disperse the constituents of that plant matter into the menstruum. Now, this is a heat infused oil based technique that I'm doing. Warm would be basically I could use the same olive oil at room temperature. I could use this at room temperature, let it sit for about 4 weeks, shake it up every other day or so like that, just to make sure everything, the constituents of the plant-based particulates disperse properly, and that works. So that's a warm-based method, which is just room temperature, and then now I'm adding heat to help break down the plant matter quickly, and this is going to sit over a longer time as well. So what I'm surmising is that by the time I'm ready to do something with this infused oil, it'll be really, really concentrated because I'm using a heat infusion at first. Alright, so we've reached the desired temp of the oil, and so now I've labeled my yarrow first. And we're going to add the menstruum, which is the oil. And I'm just going to use my cup from before. And yeah, oil can be a bit messy, kind of fussy to clean up. But that's why I have this paper towel here. There's probably an easier way to do this. I wish this pan had a lip on it. It would make it much more easier to do that. Now, these bubbles are letting me know that it's sinking down to the bottom. That's why I have a little butter knife or even a popsicle stick, because I want to try to press down the hole so that kind of tamp this down so that the oil can fill the whole container and cover my plant material. Okay, again, this oil is probably, it's hot, not probably. It's hot. It's 120 degrees to 144 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to keep it around there. And I have my little burner set to the lowest setting, and it's about right there. Because we're not trying to cook our plant material, but I want to tamp this down. And yeah, this looks like all the air bubbles are out. Sometimes you can kind of let it sit, as long as it's not too hot. Let the air bubbles out. We're going to do the plantain the same. Alright, next I got my plantain. It's the same deal. Same old deal as when we did with the yarrow. I want to scoop up my hot oil and pour this over our vegetable matter. And then I want to use a tool like a butter knife, kind of tamp everything down and make sure that the menstruum or the oils get to the bottom and can cover completely our plant matter. Around. Be careful, the oil can be a bit hot. Don't scald yourself with the oil. That's a bad burn. But yeah, I'm gonna give some headspace for the threads here. So I think we got about right? Top off with this a little bit just to use what's in the glass here, my cup. I think the yarrow is good. This is good. Now I'm going to turn off my eye on my burner here. Oops. That's the other way. Turn this off, unplug it, and then wait for this to cool off. Now, a bit of a safety note. Now this has a handle, this pot here. Please, please, please don't have your dogs, your animals, you're chasing a ferret, chasing a cat, chasing a snake around your freaking kitchen when you're working with hot stuff. Please don't do that. Everybody needs to be preoccupied, settle down, or they need to follow your voice as a parent. I've had those incidents almost when I'm cooking with a lot of grease and I got somebody's kids running through my kitchen as I'm cooking the hot stuff, right? And I told the parent, and it wasn't my kid, I told the parent, can you please, wrangle your child? And apparently I was wrong for doing that. My whole thing was I don't want to turn around and scald with a cauldron of hot oil your child. So again, be safe, use common sense. When you're using boiling hot water, when you're using hot oils, especially hot wax, etc., etc., make sure the uncontrollables, the incorrigible ones, are well away someplace else out of the danger zone.